That must be awesome to see, because if you do that day in, day out, see that impact on people.
I do, and not everyone responds in the same way, and mindfulness isn't a panacea. But what I do think is, what I just said before, we all have a mind.
Yeah.
And there are actually quite simple things that we can do to shift our mental patterns, shift our ways of thinking and perceiving. It's not, in a way, rocket science any more than, we've all got bodies, and we can keep our bodies fit and healthy by looking after our nutrition and taking exercise. And that's not complicated, really. But there's a huge difference in terms of whether you do it or don't do it. It's a difference between fitness and ill health. So, that is, I think what we're engaging with mindfulness is quite fundamental, because our minds are fundamental. And you can do that. You can cultivate your mind in lots of different ways. You can do it, some people will make a kind of practice of listening to music or enjoying nature. And if there's an element of self-reflection that goes along with that, then those become, in a way, transformative practices for cultivating a better state of mind. And people have always done that. They've always known about it. And mindfulness is a particular way that seems to be very accessible. But there's this broader attitude. And my own view is that the reason that it's become popular now is that actually we've forgotten how to do some of those basic things. If we have a quiet moment, we have a million different things, thanks to Steve Jobs and his friends, that can fill that moment. And that's what we do. It's just easy. It's kind of stimulating and fun. But then we leave out all of the things that can happen in the spaces between texts.
And I think there's an element of fear of the spaces, isn't there? People are scared of being still, of what they might think or feel if they just sit still for a minute.
We're scared of what's unfamiliar to us.
Yeah.
So if we have a habit of never leaving a space, then it will start to feel scary. But it's not necessarily that there's something actually scary that will happen when we enter that space.
No, we just think there will be, or we think there might be. So we avoid it, don't we?
Yeah, it's a fear. It's an irrational fear.
Yeah,
totally. But I think probably all of the people on your podcast will be saying that if we want to make a change in any way in our lives, we need to do some of the things that are a little bit unfamiliar. It almost goes without saying, doesn't it? And some of those unfamiliar things might feel uncomfortable. So therefore, if you want to cultivate things like happiness, you need to be willing to do things that are a little bit uncomfortable, at least to begin with.
At least, because that's how you grow, isn't it? That's how you expand as a being.
There is no other way.
Yeah.
There is no other way.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Okay, so what gives you the biggest buzz in your work, but also in your life? What gives you, and it might be the same thing, but what gives you the biggest buzz?
Well, buzz. I don't particularly look for a buzz, actually. But I do find it very, very gratifying when I see people who are suffering start to make a shift and not be suffering so much more. I get excited when people start to talk about having a new perspective and all of the things that means. And I think that we've all got a lot more potential than we've realized in our lives. I mean, I feel this very strongly when I go to prisons, and it has to be a sort of act of faith, because in some cases there's not a lot of grounds for confidence. given the mistakes that people have made, but an act of faith that we have the capacity to flourish and to understand ourselves much more deeply, and all the satisfaction that comes from that understanding. So that's what gives me a buzz in my work. In my life, I get a buzz from reading stories to my son at night and wrestling him, except he's getting a bit big for that now.
How old is he now?
No, actually, he's not too big. He's 8.
Yeah.
No, we do a lot of wrestling. But yeah, lots of other things.
Brilliant. And this sounds a bit obvious, but I think a lot of this stuff is, like you said, it's not rocket science, most of it, is it? Do you think the mindfulness contributes to your, because I'm the same, I get the biggest buzz out of spending time literally lying on the sofa cuddling my 2 girls. That's utterly my buzz, and it's the simplest thing ever to do. But that would be my personal answer to that question, and it's utterly different to the answer for my work. But I put a lot of that, I credit mindfulness, having learnt mindfulness from you, with understanding that the importance of that simplicity. That makes sense, what I just said.
Yes, it does make sense.
So I guess I'm trying to ask you, is that, do you think that's where you've got that from your Buddhist teachings, from practicing mindfulness for so long?
Yes. Now, I'm not holding myself up as any kind of paragon, but I do take pleasure in simple things, and I try to take pleasure in those things. I think, I live a busy life, and I think a lot of the pressures that we all feel, it's partly the sense that there's a million things I could be doing in this moment. And there's a million experiences I could be having in this moment. And all those people I could be communicating with right now. And so it's quite hard not to feel that I'm missing out on something by doing this. But we only ever have this moment, this experience, whatever it is. And that experience might be pleasant, it might not be pleasant. But the idea of missing out goes along with other ideas, like comparing ourselves with other people, and thinking, which is another version of it, because we think they've got more than me, therefore I'm missing out. That sense of lack, I think, goes quite deep in our culture, and we need to recognize it and not be driven by it. It will not lead us to happiness.